كل يوم من 17 مايو من السنة. وهذا الاحتفال بدأ بمناسبة تأسيس الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات عام 1969 وتوقيع الاتفاقية الدولية الأولى للبرق في عام 1865. موضوع اليوم العالمي للاتصالات لهذا العام هو تسريع التحول الرقمي في الأوقات الصعبة، ويسلط الاحتفال هذا العام الضوء على الدور الحاسم لتكنولوجيا المعلومات والاتصالات في الحفاظ على عمل المجتمعات، وبالأخص أثناء جائحة كوفيد-19. في حدثنا اليوم نود أن نشارك إنجازات دولتنا الغالية والقصص الناجحة خلال هذا الوقت الصعب. وقبل البدء بأجندة اليوم أود أن أنبه حضورنا الكريم بتوفر خاصية الترجمة من اللغة العربية إلى اللغة الإنجليزية ومن اللغة الإنجليزية إلى العربية. السيدات والسادة، للبدء بهذا الحدث نرحب بالمهندس سيف بن غليطة المدير التنفيذي لإدارة شؤون تطوير التكنولوجيا لتقديم الكلمة الافتتاحية، فلتتفضل المهندس سيف مشكورا.
السلام عليكم جميعا. السيدات والسادة الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدني أن أشارككم احتفال العالمي باليوم العالمي للاتصالات وتكنولوجيا المعلومات. هذا الحدث الذي يأتي في مرحلة فارقة من التاريخ، حيث ودعنا عاما ثقيلا على البشرية جمعاء، وما زلنا نعمل من أجل التغلب على الجائحة وتداعياتها، مسلحين بالأمل والعمل ومستندين إلى آخر ما توصل إليه العقل البشري في مختلف المجالات، وفي المقدمة منها مجال الاتصالات. لقد جاءت الجائحة بينما يمضي العالم حثيثا في تطبيق أهداف الأمم المتحدة الإنمائية ومستهدفات خطوط العمل المنبثقة من القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات وغيرها من الأهداف ذات الطبيعة الإنسانية. جاءت لتؤكد لنا الحاجة الماسة لتعزيز مبادئ الاستدامة والتعامل العاجل مع الفجوة الرقمية، لما لذلك من دور في إنقاذ حياة الملايين من البشر وضمان استمرارية الحياة في مختلف الظروف والطوارئ. لقد كان الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات منذ نشأته وما زال إلى يومنا هذا في مقدمة الركب الإنساني لتحقيق هذه الأهداف النبيلة. وقد توج الاتحاد هذا التوجه من خلال القرار رقم 200 المنبثق عن مؤتمر المندوبين المفوضين 2018 المنعقد في دبي في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة، والذي يعنى ببرنامج التوصيل 2030 من أجل التنمية العالمية للاتصالات، الذي يؤكد مساهمة هذا القطاع في تسريع العمل على تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة وخطة الأمم المتحدة للتنمية المستدامة 2030. أيها الحضور، إننا اليوم وعلى الرغم من الظروف الصعبة التي مر بها العالم خلال الفترة الأخيرة أقرب إلى تحقيق تلك الأهداف. فقد تكرس دور التكنولوجيا، وبالأخص تكنولوجيا الاتصالات والمعلومات المدعومة بالذكاء الاصطناعي من خلال التجربة الواقعية، وثبت للعالم أنه بالإمكان الاستناد إلى تلك التقنيات لتغيير الكثير من الأساليب المعتادة من دون المساس بحاجات الإنسان الأساسية من عمل وتعليم وحاجات أخرى. وخلال لقائنا اليوم سيتم مشاركة المعرفة وأفضل التجارب من دولة الإمارات كما تم إعلانه سابقا. نحن هنا في دولة الإمارات عشنا تجربة نعتز بها في هذا السياق، فبفضل البنية التحتية القوية لقطاع الاتصالات والاهتمام المبكر من قيادتنا الرشيدة بالتحول الرقمي على كافة الأصعدة ومناخ التعاون والشراكة بين القطاعات المختلفة، نجحنا منذ الأيام الأولى للجائحة في الانتقال السريع إلى العمل عن بعد والتعلم عن بعد وتقديم الخدمات الحكومية عبر منصات رقمية وتأمين الدعم لمختلف شرائح المستخدمين للوصول إلى تلك الخدمات، وكذلك البيع والشراء عبر منصات التجارة الرقمية. وبفضل تلك الجاهزية كنا من أوائل الدول التي تدخل مرحلة التعافي، حيث استضافت الإمارات معرض جايتكس للتقنية 2020 بشكل حضوري وبمشاركة المئات من الدول وبحضور عشرات الآلاف من الزوار والمهتمين. وتلا ذلك العديد من المعارض والفعاليات العالمية. ونحن اليوم نستعد للحدث الكبير المتمثل في معرض إكسبو الذي تستضيفه دبي في أكتوبر المقبل بمشاركة كافة دول العالم. وهنا أنتهز هذه الفرصة لأوجه لكم الدعوة لهذا الحدث العالمي الكبير لنحتفي معا بالعودة الفعلية إلى الحياة الطبيعية التي يسودها الازدهار الاقتصادي والتفاعل البشري المنتج لصناعة مستقبل أكثر إشراقا. أرجو لكم الصحة والعافية وإلى المزيد من النجاحات على طريق التنمية والرفاهية والسعادة لمجتمعاتنا ولبني البشر جميعا. أشكركم مرة أخرى والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا لك المهندس سيف بن غليطة. والآن حضورنا الكريم دعونا نعرض لكم عرض مرئي يوضح ويلخص لكم اليوم العالمي للاتصالات وشعار هذا العام.
The digital transformation is happening all around us. Information and communication technologies sustain life, work, health, and learning. But these are challenging times. In the COVID-19 crisis, ICTs ensure access to healthcare, education, and essential goods and services for billions of people. Radio communication, telecommunications standards, and telecommunication development all support growth, inclusiveness, sustainability, innovation, partnership. The Connect 2030 goals of the International Telecommunication Union, ITU. Today, ITU calls on its unique global public-private membership to further accelerate digital transformation in challenging times. Today, our members can adopt a digital agenda and strategy, offer government services online, strengthen cybersecurity, develop national emergency telecommunication plans, foster innovation and infrastructure, build effective partnerships. Together, we can make humanity safer, stronger, and more connected in this decade of action for sustainable development. Digital technologies are vital to fulfill the promise and build resilience against future challenges. And yet, nearly half the world's population remains unconnected. ITU fosters international cooperation and supports universal connectivity to make the transformation equitable, safe, inclusive and affordable for all. 17th of May is World Telecommunication and Information Society Day. Keep on sharing your stories. Find out more. www.itu.int/WTISD.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it's my pleasure to convey a message from His Excellency Hollins Howe, ITU Secretary General.
Driven by information and communication technologies, our societies have undergone a digital transformation that gave birth to the digital economy and the information society. The information society has emerged as one of the main lines of defense against the COVID-19. There have been many successful stories which have shown a spotlight both on the vital importance of ICTs and the deep digital inequalities between and within countries. In this decisive year, ITU will use World Telecommunication and Information Society Day to unite the world in pursuit of digital transformation in every area of business and all parts of life. It will be an opportunity to strengthen national strategies on ICT development, implement smart policies and effective measures to encourage investments in ICTs and digital skills, and upgrade our services with new technologies ranging from AI to 5G that are central to the digital economy. This moment in history calls for cooperation and partnerships. I'm calling on our members and other stakeholders to continue our efforts to harness the power of ICTs to advance the WSIS action lines, ITU's Connect 2030 agenda, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the theme Connecting the Unconnected to Achieve Sustainable Development of the ITU World Telecommunication Development Conference 2021, so that the accelerating digital transformation we are witnessing leaves no one behind, no one offline. We want to hear about your success stories, but also about your challenges and lessons learned. Share them with ITU now, and we will give them the praise they deserve during the 17th May celebration of World Telecommunication and Information Society Day 2021, under the theme of accelerating digital transformation in challenging times. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and be strong.
Dear all, today's event has three main pillars. The first pillar falls under the title Accelerating the Digital Transformation in Challenging Times, and we will host in this pillar our colleague from TEDRA. Now I'm delegated to welcome Mr. Mohammed Al-Khamis on the stage, who will shed the light on TEDRA's achievement during the challenging time of COVID-19. The stage is yours, Mr. Mohammed.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you today in this conference. It's World Telecommunication and Information Day. I'm going to share with you the UAE experience in dealing with difficult times of COVID, which has been a challenging time worldwide. Before we start, I just want to make sure that my presentation is visible.
Yes, Mr. Mohammed.
So I would like to start my presentation, which will provide a quick summary of how did the UAE deal with COVID and what were the success criteria and elements that led us to be able to respond very quickly to the COVID challenge, which has been a very difficult challenge worldwide. I would like to start with COVID is a test of resilience, test of how government are agile. And it's also a test of how well countries have been doing in terms of their world-class infrastructure. With the UAE, we have been in the front fort of all ICT infrastructure and indices around the world. And this is just a summary of some of the core elements that are really required and important for a digital transformation and responding to challenging times that are unexpected. Our leaders have always put us, given us a clear direction in terms of ensuring that we foresee the future and we plan for the future. The UAE ICT infrastructure has been in place for more than 20 years. Our telecom operators have done a tremendous and excellent job over the past years in ensuring that the right infrastructure is put in place. And this is why we were able to reap the benefits of those investments that have been there for the past years. UAE government has have success over the past 10 years in terms of digital transformation. Starting back in 2003, with the first electronic government that has been launched within the UAE, with the first digital payment system, which is e-Dirham, which has been launched, and the federal government portal. Perhaps this particular slide would like to emphasize on the foundation that has been put in place 10 years ago when it comes to the digital infrastructure and transformation. As I mentioned earlier, our leaders were extremely clear in terms of their direction, in terms of seeing the future and realizing early on that the future is digital. I remember this day very well when we were called upon a meeting with all the director generals and the leaders within the UAE organization, where it was announced that the government would like to move to mobile. And by that, all the services available will now be available on the mobile devices that will be provided to customers, businesses, government, 24/7, all around the years. It was extremely astonishing, and it's also very challenging. His Highness gave us a 2-year time frame to achieve the impossible. At May 2013 was the launch. May 2015 was the reaping of the rewards. His Highness reminded everyone that regarding that target, as a government, we worked in a very agile way. We ensured that we focus on the services becoming online, those services that comprise 80% of the priority service, focusing on the 20/80 rule, where we are able to transform 96 of our services, priority services, online. It was a tremendous effort, a collaborative effort by all government entities, private sector, all involved in this particular engagement. Fast forward, today, we built the foundation of digital government. A number of key enablers were launched. Some of them were enhanced because the foundation was there years ago. A federal network, which was built to connect all government entities on a federal level, connecting also local governments or local networks. A digital identity, which is a core element for online transaction or digital transaction. And other related key enablers was also launched within a series of years to months. We also ensured that we have clear plans to build up the capacity and the capability of government employees, customers, as well as businesses within the UAE. This is where the telecommunication and digital government virtual academy was launched to ensure that continuous learning is the way for future. Perhaps COVID-19 for us was an opportunity for a digital transformation. And the next couple of slides will provide you a quick snippet into what happened actually post-COVID. Definitely, there was a time of shock, a time of standstill for many, many countries around the world. Within the UAE, we acted in an agile manner, establishing an emergency committee, ensuring that business continuity is the way forward. And without that foundational infrastructure that was put in place years and years ago, and that investment that has been put in place 4 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible. Some of the action items that were taken by the government is to ensure building that federal network to enable remote working for all federal government across the UAE. That was something which is done very smoothly with a click of a button. Private sectors were also onboarded. Many of the applications, remote working applications, were enabled, which were there. The UAE government enabled the Microsoft Teams or endorsed it, as well as Zoom, as two of the applications that are heavily used by the government of the United Arab Emirates, as well as the educational sector and the health. Talking about the education sector, and I think this is an important foundation, which I would like to again focus on. Foundational elements are extremely important. The launch of Mohammed bin Rashid Smart Learning Program was done in 2012. Foreseeing the future of digital learning was an element going forward. This was a huge change management exercise. It wasn't a technical infrastructure building exercise, but more of a change management exercise where teachers, parents, schools, students were trained and recalibrated to be able to work and learn remotely. And this really proved success in the COVID arena. Some of the action items that was taken very smoothly and very quickly by the UAE government was to ensure that we're able to enable more than 1 million students within a matter of 2 weeks. The education system in the UAE did not stand still, but continued to conduct as per the timelines within the education sector. Free internet was provided for families who do not have home internet. We've enabled elastic internet bandwidth to ensure that enhanced network capacity and facilitate success of distant need whenever there is a need for it. Free satellite services were provided to students that stay in remote areas to ensure that they always have internet at all times. When it comes to the health sector, as many of the countries have done, an application was developed, or a service to ensure that a vaccination appointment could be taken, and that has been rolled out very, very quickly. Within the TIDRA and the TRA telecommunication sector, many of the exemptions were provided to hospitals and medical centers to ensure that they're able to operate without any hurdles. When it comes to the judicial system, and because of the COVID impact, many of the businesses, individuals would like to conduct their notary-related services. This is where the UAE judicial system adopted blockchain technology as well as video conferencing to ensure that notary services are done remotely. When it comes to the banking sector, again, just to prove that the private sector has also embraced the direction of the government, embraced the direction of going digital. Definitely, the foundational elements of having online banking applications, online banking systems were already in place for many years to go. However, this was a recent announcement of having the first digital corporate and retail banking to be launched in the UAE very soon. Some elements of success, and I cannot emphasize how important these elements are when it comes to the digital transformation and digital services, is having a verified digital ID, which was launched in the UAE, does not only provide authentication services, but digital signature, as well as having all your documents, which are verified using blockchain technology, right at your fingertips, which means no more physical documents, no more visits to service centers. Everything can be done mobile. A way that the UAE government responded to COVID, understanding the sensitivity and the restrictions of moving around, is enabling facial recognition for obtaining your verified digital identity. This was a collaborative effort by more than 5 government entities, allowing the registration from anywhere at any time and access to more than 6,000 government services, semi-government and private sector, all within minutes. Last but not least, the future is for those that can embrace the future and can see the future. Our leadership have understood that digital government is a strategic choice, is a choice for business continuity as well as economic growth. The direction is to create a digital window, a one digital platform, and to transform all government services into that platform within a matter of years. With this, I end my presentation. I have a very small video which will summarize what happened during COVID time and how we enabled that. If I may ask the team to please present that. Thank you very much.
It is an unstoppable world. A world on the run. To work, to school, to hospital, to the bank, to anywhere, to everywhere. Then, the world stopped. But we continued. We became collective, collaborative, unified. While you were figuring out the new normal in the physical world, we enable you in the digital world by recognizing you in the comforts of your home through your digital identity, by making your life seamless through your data vault, by letting you run your world without a stop through your digital signature. You can't see us, but we are there at every step of your unstoppable journey. In one place, with one click, through UAE Pass. Welcome to the virtual me.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, for sharing with us this informative presentation and achievements of TEDRA during such challenging time. Now, we are moving to our second pillar of the event, which mainly focus on the impact of digital transformation during challenging times in both government and private sector. We now would like to welcome Ms. Aisha Al-Jasmi and Fatma Al-Abdouli from Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure to present for us their experience. So the floor is yours.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everybody. This is Aisha Al-Jasmi, IT Director of Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure. It's an honor to be part of this event, and I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the business continuity plan for COVID-19 and the Ministry. In this presentation, I will be covering the steps followed to prepare the Ministry and manage the situation during COVID-19 as depicted on the slide. Before the pandemic affects the world situation in the UAE, we started working on assessing the network connectivity accessibility and evaluating the available online tools to support working from home, such as web-based video conferencing options and voice communication alternatives. In order to propose best solutions that fit the situation, we conducted an internal surveys with the employees to evaluate the level of our readiness in terms of providing the required devices and ensuring secure accessibility from anywhere. As shown on the slide, 65% of the employees own laptops, which leaves 35% of them without laptops. Based on the conducted analysis and findings, we concluded multiple solutions to tackle the future anticipated situation. For example, in terms of devices, we came up with 3 different options to be provided for employees. Company issued laptops, bring your own devices, or rental laptops. With regards to facilitating employees' communication, we proposed the usage of Microsoft Teams, Cisco Jabber phones, and VPN for client applications. Accordingly, it was decided to rent devices for the employees to provide VPN access to internal network and applications and enable usage of office phones remotely. The key highlight of our business continuity plan was the element of successfully enabling working remotely within minimum impact and zero cost. This including managing data centers, operations remotely, providing 24/7 technical support, supporting 100% online services, and face-to-face web-enabled engagements with customers. To further facilitate the customer experience during the pandemic, we developed our services with e-debit transactions features through banks, on top of the current e-dirham and credit card payments in coordination with Ministry of Finance. We enabled waiving the late fees of certain services and fast-track the development of customer support chatbot Al-Fatin, which assists customers end-to-end online transactions for key services. And now I would like to leave the floor for my colleague Fatma Al-Abdouli to explain further our initiatives to customers, citizens, and stakeholders.
Thank you, Aisha. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. This is Fatma Al-Abdouli, Acting Director of Information and Statistics in Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure. It is our great pleasure to be part of this event, World Telecommunication and Information Society Day, where we would like to highlight the usage of IT and its role in overcoming a lot of challenges the world faced during COVID-19, and especially in our Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, and its launch of Facilities Smart Hub as a response to COVID-19. Coming back to the slide, you can see that one of the initiatives that being started by Ministry of Infrastructure and of Energy and Infrastructure is the COVID-19 response Smart Hub. This hub was developed as a response to counter the spread of COVID-19 by connecting important stakeholders data related in one platform. It helps in saving life and reducing the rapid spread of COVID-19 by adapting the use of its federal building, understanding its capacity, its safety, and the risk challenges in regards to the healthcare sector during the pandemic. Moreover, it helps our decision maker to identify and adapt appropriate sites for the new reuse of this building, which includes different type of facilities and building, such as hall, sports centers, and community facility centers, and others available space for occupancy. One of the more things that we would like to highlight that this hub utilized a lot of artificial intelligence technologies and tools using the data and statistics that support accurate studies, which make the decision maker more faster and proactive. Now we would like to talk more deeper on the application that been used by this hub. This application gave the simple access to information to us in Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy, as well as our stakeholder. Mainly, it includes different applications. You can see in the slide we highlighted the 4 main applications that been used in this hub, which is the comparison maps application, which allows the comparison between the labor sites across UAE, the land uses, and the existing facilities and building location. The second application is the emergency building dashboard, which shows all the emergency building information like the geographical distribution and their areas. As well as for the third application, it's the emergency building explorer, which explores the building data per emirate and their status and the organization that it belongs to. The fourth application we'll be talking about is the emergency building sanitization. It is including the emergency building sanitization status in a smart dashboard. Coming also to the toolkits that have been implemented in this hub, is that we implemented one toolkit that will help us find the facilities which are nearby, which make it easier for us, especially in cooperation with our stakeholder in the healthcare sector. Also, we implemented a tool to make sure that we have the data accurately, real time with our stakeholder, because as you know, having a very speedy response in emergency is very key factor to success in mitigation of any risk can be happen in this pandemic. This is for our presentation, and thank you for your listening.
Thank you both, Aisha and Fatma. And now please join me in welcoming Ms. Nada Abu Saab from Majid Al Futtaim to present their initiative. The floor is yours, Ms. Nada.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you here today. I'm just sharing my screen quickly. Give me a minute, please. I hope you can all see my screen and hear me clearly.
Yes.
That's great. So my name is Nada Abu Saab. I'm the marketing director for Majid Al Futtaim shopping malls. And today I would like to take you through some of the examples that we've implemented across Majid Al Futtaim destinations to accelerate our digital transformation. At Majid Al Futtaim, our retail evolution is driven by the need to adapt to rapidly changing environments and respond effectively to challenges. Over the past year, we worked closely with our tenants, brands, and retailers to find innovative solutions to help their businesses navigate changing trends and thrive. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we did accelerate that process and to ensure that retailers had a compelling option to transact and to continue providing their offerings to consumers in the UAE. If you look at the numbers, you will all see that 90% of our consumers are actually using multiple channels, whether it's email, social, text, to engage with different businesses and brands. In fact, 100 million customers are set to engage in shopping experiences involving AR. We all heard about brands that have opened virtual showrooms and fitting rooms to allow customers to try on their outfits in virtual spaces. What we did is we listened. We listened to our consumers here at Majal Al Futtaim, and we are using technology to elevate their experience, to help ease any concerns about COVID-19 when customers visit our malls. So we looked at the situation and we defined the problem first. So the problem is defined by the virus, these unprecedented times that are definitely changing our industry and the way consumers interact with brands and physical spaces. The reaction was some thought that this is going to kill the physical space. This is going to kill shopping malls. But the solution is not that. And in fact, the reality is not that. Some thought about a solution that will be only online, but it's also not the answer, because humans still desire the physical experience of retail, but with more digital touch points to complement the offline experience. So the answer is simply omnichannel. Omnichannel will become the new standard by which consumers judge brands as the physical and digital converge. And brands will seek out retail space where omnichannel approaches are integrated. As the pandemic passes, people will return to the pleasures of physical retail, which cannot be truly replicated with digital, but only enhanced. So to meet our customers' needs during the COVID times, Majal Al Futtaim launched different solutions. And today I'm going to take you through some of these examples. From click and collect for Carrefour's online customers, to the Vox Cinema Drive-In that I'm sure all of you heard about, Trends at your doorstep, and Marketplace, as well as the contactless parking experience. Let's start with Trends. These are definitely unforgettable times, because we really sat down in a situation where the malls were closed, the retail has been put on hold, but we still wanted to support our retailers. In true Majal Al Futtaim style, we've evolved the retail experience we're offering. And this initiative is a testament to the strength of the partnerships with our brands and the success of our omni-channel strategy, where we focus on growing both our physical and digital presence. With the limitation on movement, as I mentioned, shoppers could still through Trends effortlessly access the latest styles through the e-catalog solution and have these items delivered straight to their doorstep, hence the name Trends at your doorstep. Marketplace on Carrefour is already open, but what we've done is we've offered that solution to our retail partners within Majal Al Futtaim ecosystem. And this is another step in our omnichannel offering, where we're providing access to a very robust e-commerce infrastructure to support the brands as they seek to move online to complement their in-store offering. Click and Collect is a new digital platform launched to help our mall tenant partners reach a wider audience following the rising demand for online services. As you know, it provides access to our significant offerings to support brands as they seek to embrace omnichannel. And also, this will definitely support their in-store experience. Vox. This was definitely, again, one of our great moments, unforgettable moments at Majal Al Futtaim. With Vox Cinema's temporary close during the global pandemic, there was a huge pent-up demand for safe, out-of-home entertainment experiences, where movie lovers could connect with friends and families. So we've launched this in response to our consumer demand and in line with Majal Al Futtaim's commitment to always provide great moments for everyone, every day. And this concept was born. The rooftop of Mall of the Emirates was transformed completely into a moonlight theater where guests could safely enjoy the magic of movies under the iconic Ski Dubai slope. With a 20-foot screen, it was definitely a big one. It was the only operating cinema in the Middle East, and it garnered international media attention, showcasing Dubai as a global hub of innovation and a city of endless possibilities. And then we ask, what's next? Well, we recognize that COVID-19 has definitely permanently changed our world. And this is why we continue to be focused on finding long-term solutions for our entire ecosystem. Our hope is that current global efforts to contain the virus and its impact are successful. And all businesses, big and small, and more importantly small, will have the opportunity to thrive. At Majal Al-Futtaim, we continue to look at new initiatives to support our ecosystem of stakeholders, tenants, partners, suppliers. We're committed to being as present digitally as we are physically. And we are confident this represents a further innovation to benefit our partners and the wider ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nada. Thank you. And now, dear all, we will move to showcase more initiative for digital transformation to improve the lives of people and communication. And it's our pleasure today to host Ms. Hiba Jani from Ministry of Finance to share their experience with us.
First of all, good morning, everyone. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, myself is Hiba Abdelmalik Jani, leading as an application development team in Ministry of Finance. It's an honor to present the digital transformation accelerating happening in Ministry of Finance. The agenda of my presentation, I'm going to talk about the challenge of COVID-19 on MOF employees and customers and describe how we mitigate it is as an impact on MOF, and introducing the importance of being proactive and how MOF achieve a greater efficiency in technology. And I will go through the existing project approach and methodology and what have been done in brief. And we'll explore the service delivery and how we support the work of government entities. At last, we'll show how we secure our deliveries. As you know, COVID-19 has impacted the way we work and especially the industry of technology. The spread of work and participation among the employees and the management of Ministry of Finance was the main factor assisting in facing the challenges. The Ministry of Finance consider employees' safety of the utmost importance when the COVID-19 emerged, which required the need to focus on providing a safe and fast work environment. On the other hand, the policy of physical meeting was updated on a sustainable basis by using the adopted tools available, and the challenge of sustaining plans to support the day-to-day operation of core business activities without interrupted was also the main factor here. The impact of the challenges in COVID-19 with Ministry of Finance, MOF employees had to work from home due to COVID-19 to protect them and their families, and to overcome the challenges of Ministry of Finance, adopt digital collaborative tools like virtual desktop infrastructure VDI, Microsoft Teams, Cisco Jabber to their meetings due to the change in physical meeting policies. And also, MOF employees had to upskill their knowledge on security features to protect their data and information, which consider a benefit to MOF in its business transformation process as well. To achieving greater efficiency, the Ministry of Finance began investing the time and money to change the way we do business in government in 2017. As a technology is the core of every government program. Our government, our management, and the rest of the MOF leaderships has played a major role in driving this transformation. Some of the points that played a major role in driving the force that made us look at change are: secure the access to our government, to our environment from anywhere and across the platform, as there are many strategic partners of the Ministry of Finance working from all over the world, and there are a consultant needed to enter the work environment to provide necessary services to the Ministry of Finance. Second, the tools that used by MOF management, as many of the administrative tasks entrusted to the higher management of the Ministry of Finance needed a clear and flexible method to use and work from any means. Keeping the project on tracks. The projects of the Ministry of Finance tied to specific delivery dates and the local and international levels, which consider of a high importance needs high performance in an elaborate manner. Incoming slide will present how to overcome these challenges and achieve a high secure deliveries. As an existing project and approach and in our projects and methodologies before COVID-19 and also during COVID-19, we are using to go through these 5 steps. The first step, identify and document catalog of services and process. The second step, diagnosing current state to identify efficient and prioritize based on the importance. The third step, design future state process of the prioritized services. Fourth, deliver the quick win implementation to optimize 3 key services or process based on the prioritizing matrix. Third, which is the 5th one and the last one, monitor and track the service and process improvement to ensure the sustainability. Lastly, each state of stakeholder engagement. Ensure the validation of outputs first by the project working group, which followed and presented to the steering committee, which is handled by Ministry of Finance, which also handled by our minister, His Excellency the Minister, Ubaida Tayer, and also Undersecretary Yunus Al-Khouri. MOF adopted 2 measures. Sorry about that. So how MOF delivered the services efficiently? The Rawat team, a team that includes an employees from each department that is responsible of all government initiatives, collected the large number of customers' feedback and all support tickets, analyzed that data, and then put in place correction actions such as facilitate and simplified and also standardize customer experience for the services, the e-services. Enable process automation for support tickets to work 24 hours by 7 days. Adopt a new digital access and it has become an easy to access financial system. Extract data and generate reports through one portal. As MOF provides a federal systems to all UAE government entities, we have taken an urgent procedures to ensure the business continuity by using the latest technology. First, to ensure the provision of financial system services, we paying federal government salaries on time, carrying out government procurement electronically via the federal financial system, and handling the technical support requested. Second, to officially managing the federal financial system, we provide a smart tool to request and access to the federal financial system, ensuring the implementation of the policies to guarantee the safety work from home. Finally, to keep the innovation projects steadily on track, we became version of federal financial integration into the e-dirham system and digital platform for government procurement, and also proceed to pay cycle for targeted federal entities. By launching the digital platform, MOF adopt two major solutions to support the digital transformation of federal government and ensure the continuity of government work, which are collection management system CMS and smart system for job budgets. CMS enabling the automated collection handling by statement of federal services and achieve accuracy in managing all financial statement of government revenue, and other system ensuring the full integration of automated budget preparation, which is considered the first of its kind in the region that achieves the optimal use of time and effort and fully eliminates the needs of paperwork. In security part, MOF had covered a lot of initiatives as per the following. Security assessment BAPT. MOF needs to be able to address compliance, security, and regularity demands through the collaboration set of process that highlight the risk within MOF environment, which enforce accountability through the business and provide the evidence of compliance, reduce securities-related business risks, and creates an effective process for monitoring and control across the interior enterprises. The security awareness, establishing and maintaining awareness through the security awareness program is a vital to our organization. Reports and up-to-date implementation security awareness program assists our organization with the education, monitoring, and ongoing maintenance of security awareness within the organization. Excuse me. That's all, and thank you all for your listening.
Thank you, Nada. And now from Kareem, we are happy to host Mr. Colin as a speaker today to take a look at their stories during this challenging time. Mr. Colin.
Good morning and salam alaikum. I'm trying to turn on my video. If you could help with that, that would be fantastic.
Until now, we can't. Yes, now it's clear.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to be with you today and to share some of Kareem's experience during this unprecedented time. It certainly is hard to believe that we've been in a global pandemic for a year now. I can tell you from a mobility company's perspective that has certainly led to transformations both in the customer demands of our marketplace as well as our business itself. Today, I'm going to talk you through what Kareem does in the region, the 6 specific challenges that we faced because of COVID, and then I'm going to deep dive on one tech-enabled solution that we were able to launch to help the people in our region hopefully overcome this pandemic. And we believe that initiative has certainly contributed to digital transformation. So just real quickly, for those of you who aren't familiar with Kareem, we were founded here in Dubai. We're very proud to be a homegrown technology company, and that was back in 2012. We've had quite a journey in the last 9 years. We were actually founded on the first day of Ramadan in 2012, so our lunar anniversary has just passed us. And we're very excited about all that we've accomplished in 9 short years, but we're also humbled and frankly inspired by all that we have yet to do. And we believe that we're very early in our journey to simplify and improve lives across the region. So from humble beginnings in Dubai in 2012, we progressed to entering into a joint venture with the Dubai RTA, and that today takes the form of Hala, which has moved over 10 million people since its inception in 2019. We're very proud to offer a personal mobility solution in the form of Careem Bike, and we're very grateful for our partnership that has allowed people to have alternative means of transportation that are both more environmentally sustainable as well as, frankly, healthier. I don't know if anybody hasn't gotten an opportunity to jump on a Careem bike. It's getting a little bit warm, but early mornings and late afternoons, it's still very pleasant this time of year. And then, you know, not to kind of lift the curtain too early, but our Get Vaccinated widget was something that we launched early this year that we're very proud of, and then I'm going to talk you through in a little bit more detail. Some people, like me, actually, before I joined Careem, who live and work in the UAE, sometimes get a sense that we're actually just a UAE company. And Careem is actually in 13 different countries today. We operate from Morocco to Pakistan. We've got about 48 million registered users and about 1.5 million captains. So with that scale, we know that we have a responsibility to help leapfrog this region in terms of digital transformation. And, you know, alhamdulillah, we had some plans in place before the pandemic that ended up looking prescient. And I wish I could say that we have amazing vision, but in reality, we got lucky. And some of the things that we were working on and some of the things that we had planned, frankly, were catalyzed forward by some of the forces outside of our control in this pandemic. So to take you a little bit deeper into what the pandemic meant for Careem, you know, our business is very day-to-day. We actually have internal dashboards and trackers that give colleagues like myself an opportunity to see every 15 minutes how many trips, how many orders, how many transactions we're doing in each of our 100+ cities across the region, because we have no long-term revenue. We have no long-term clients or contracts. We have to win and earn people's trust every single day. And oftentimes, these are very competitive marketplaces that we're working in. The other side of the marketplace that we facilitate is captains. And as I mentioned, we have roughly 1.5 million captains working across the region, finding income earning opportunities via Careem. So in the very early days of the pandemic, when the demand for trips fell off a cliff. In our worst week, we were 90% down from our pre-COVID levels. The business just evaporated, and for good reason. People were staying home. But the reality is these 1.5 million captains who rely on Careem for their earnings were left without that source of income. And that didn't just mean 1.5 million individuals, it meant 1.5 million families that needed help. So we turned to governments across the region and we looked at partnerships, and we were very grateful for support that was made available across the region. In total, $12.1 million flowed to our captains in the form of direct support. Some of that was food aid, some of that was direct cash aid. But then Careem also felt an obligation to do things itself. And we can't simply rely on others to look after captains in times of adversity. So we launched a formal program where any captain who was COVID-19 positive received their earnings without needing to drive. And we simply asked them to show a positive PCR test. And then we as Careem sent them 2 weeks earnings because we wanted them to be able to recuperate, to recover. And then we also turned to our colleagues, and our colleagues very generously reached into their own pockets and donated over $700,000 to captains to make sure that in the difficult times, in the darkest days of the pandemic, they and their families were looked after as well. Now, lockdowns was an interesting challenge for us because on the one hand, nobody can go out during a lockdown. But on the other hand, for a lockdown to work, nobody should go out. And what do I mean by that? Well, the reality is for a lockdown to really work well, everybody needs to stay home. But people also need daily essentials. They need cooking gas and rice and water and daily bread. And in that, we saw both a challenge to our mobility of people business, as well as an opportunity to our very nascent early stage mobility of things business. So we partnered with governments across the region to obtain curfew movement permits for our mobility of things captains so that they could register and they could then move during curfew hours to help the lockdowns work, to help to make sure that people could stay home but still have food to eat. Now, that also had the added benefit of allowing those captains to continue to earn. So in some cases, we were subsidizing their earnings. In some cases, it was simply customers paying them to do these deliveries. But it was a symbiotic relationship where governments were able to impose the lockdown effectively. Careem was able to maintain some baseline of business. Our captains were able to maintain some earnings. And our customers were able to get access to those daily essentials without putting themselves or their families at risk by leaving their home. Now, demand for delivery continued to grow throughout the pandemic. And part of the digital transformation is we saw consumer behaviors continue to change. We tried to capitalize on that trend and give people what they need and what they want. So we launched delivery services in Bahrain, in Egypt, in Morocco. And we also expanded into new cities and countries where we were already offering delivery. Now, there was also, from the very earliest days, a need for safety and hygiene. So we looked at mask mandates, both captains and customers being required to wear masks, new safety protocols, but then there were also digital methods that we were using to ensure compliance. So we have what we call internally a quality engine. Anytime a trip is low rated by a customer or a transaction is low rated by a customer or captain, we try to figure out why. And we have very sophisticated algorithms that are mapping customer behavior and more importantly, captain behavior to make sure that we're delivering the highest quality services that we can. Well, we tweaked that quality engine to become a safety engine in the first few weeks of the pandemic. And we encouraged our customers to reach out to us if they were seeing behaviors that didn't conform with the safety standards, the very high standards that we were expecting of our captains. So in instances where a captain, say, had let his mask slip down, we relied on that quality engine to start mapping those behaviors. And then we were able to identify the very small number of captains out of the 1.5 million working and earning via Careem who perhaps needed re-education and needed additional captain training. And we had a sophisticated level of escalation where captains who weren't following the safety protocols were first re-educated, and then eventually it could lead to blocking those captains because we continue to take safety so seriously, and we needed that to be the hallmark and really the bedrock of the offering. Now, as you'd expect, demand for cashless transactions absolutely exploded. We already had in place the ability to take non-cash payment for any of our services, but we really leaned into that and we added new payment methods like Apple Pay, and we really tried to encourage that digital transformation, encourage customers to use those safer means of payment. Now, that's not without its challenges. Anybody who's worked in digital payments knows that there's a whole host of unsavory characters out there who will try to take a company's goodwill and attempt to do cashless transactions and turn it into an opportunity for fraud. So we really had to double down on our fraud detection to make sure that it was a safe ecosystem and that we were able to add that cashless element for more and more customers without exposing Careem to an unacceptable level of fraud. And finally, and this is where I want to spend a little bit more time, we saw a real challenge in the region, and perhaps less so in the UAE, where I think we're all very grateful that the authorities have been so progressive and frankly digitally enabled in their vaccine response. But in some of the 13 countries we operate in, we realized that access to credible information, up-to-date information on how to get tested and how to get vaccinated was a real barrier to reaching those levels of community immunity that we all need to get back to normal. So Careem said, we've got some of the world's best engineers and greatest tech resources at our disposal. Let us see if we can deploy that ability and this app that's already sitting in 48 million people's pockets and help solve this community challenge. So what did that end up looking like? Well, we built a custom tool and we called it Get Vaccinated. We built a small internal dedicated squad within Careem. It had product managers, it had designers and engineers. And we said, we're going to launch the world's first vaccination transport feature in an app. And the tool now allows customers to book a ride to a vaccination site with just 2 taps. You can get detailed information from official government sources on where vaccines are offered, who's eligible to get them, the timing of these locations. You can also call a vaccination site with 1 tap from the tool in the Careem app. And most importantly, because a lot of the vaccination sites across the region were new, they weren't yet on maps. So people might know it's in that neighborhood, but they go and they Google it and they can't find it because it's literally in a parking lot. It's a pop-up health center. So we went out and we mapped every single vaccination center in our region, and we embedded that into the Careem app to simplify that experience for a customer. You don't want to get in a Careem and think, oh, I'm going to that vaccination center in that neighborhood, and then you spend 25 minutes driving around trying to find it. You want to be driven right there. You want to get in, you want to get vaccinated, and you want to get home safely to your family. So we launched our minimum viable product in the UAE. Alhamdulillah, the UAE had basically the best data, so it was the easiest place to do it. We were able to get that access to the information really quickly and really easily. But the way Careem operates is we try to launch something quickly and then learn, because we're never going to be able to think through every eventuality, every potential ramification of a new product launch. So we really need to get it into the hands of our customers and then see how they use it and how they respond to it. So then pretty quickly, we were able to launch in 4 more countries, and we started launching a vaccination as well as a testing tool, depending on the country. We eventually launched it in Arabic as well, and rolled this out across our region based on those early learnings in the UAE. Now, we have been blown away by the response. We've had over 140,000 user interactions since we launched. The click-through rate, that's CTR here, the click-through rate is really significantly higher than the benchmark. So if you take our food widget, if you open the Careem app, one of the things we do in most of our markets is we can deliver your lunch or your dinner or your breakfast. But the click-through rate when we recommend a restaurant to a customer is typically about 1.7%. You open the app, 1.7% of customers will click on that. We're seeing click-through rates that are nearly 4% on our vaccine widget, which is really unheard of. That's really high for us. Now, once a user enters that, the feature engagement is really important, right? So this allows us to see what's a customer doing once they get in there. 4.6% in the first month that we launched it, we're looking for more information. Roughly 6.7%, and then that climbed to 7.5%. We're looking to call a vaccination center. And then finally, ultimately, we had a hypothesis that transport to these centers was something that was a barrier, and that's proved to be true. Nearly 11% of users, what they wanted was simply a ride to that center to get vaccinated or to get tested. We've also seen over 480 users share the feature with others. Now, what does this mean in really concrete terms? Well, the blue line here is 2019 and the orange line is 2020. And in the equivalent 4 weeks of 2021, in the UAE specifically, we've seen trips via the Careem app to a health center more than double. So this to us is hugely gratifying, that we hypothesized that there was a need in the marketplace for information, for access to vaccine centers and to testing centers. We moved quickly to enable that through the digital means that we have available to us. And then we launched it quickly, and we saw, frankly, phenomenal user uptake of it. Now, we think this is just the beginning. And we think that the learnings that we've taken away from this Get Vaccinated widget could be applied to a wide variety of both public health and frankly, other societal challenges. And the only reason that we were able to do this was because of partnership with government. And across our region, we've been working with smart thinking governments to access that up-to-date information, to make sure that we were providing customers with the right knowledge around vaccine eligibility, around the right locations, the timings, the contact numbers. And we think that this is a great opportunity for the private sector, specifically a tech company in the private sector, to partner with government to take those customers who are already in the daily habit of using the Careem app and help them change their behavior, or in some cases, their attitude, towards something as critically important for the society as vaccination. And there'll be other things that we can do similar projects on in the future. And we're excited to take the learnings from this project and apply that in the future. So with that, I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to present today. It really is a pleasure. And I want to thank all the other presenters. I've been learning a lot this morning and very much look forward to the conversations throughout the day.
Thank you, Mr. Colin. And it was a pleasure to host you all, our distinguished speakers in this pillar. And dear guests and audience, now we will have a break for 5 minutes, and then we will move to our last pillar, which is panel discussion to share the views on the role of ICT infrastructure and readiness to overcome the crisis. So we will meet you, inshallah, after 5 minutes. Our beloved guest and audience, welcome back. And now my colleague, Engineer Abdullah Salman, will moderate the panel discussion. Abdullah, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Shayma. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So we will start our panel discussion right now. And I would like for you all to join me in the pleasure of introducing our guests, inshallah, in the panel discussion. So we have Mr. Imad Ahmed, the Principal Solution Architect and Network Architecture Transformation Chief Expert from Huawei. We also have Mr. Ali Isa Al-Awadi, Head of Technology Service Enablement from EITC DO. Also, we have Mr. Ali Shima, Head of Government and Industrial Relations from Ericsson. Also, Mr. Emmanuel Duro, a partner in Deloitte. And lastly, our guest is Dr. Abdul Hadi Mahmoud Abul Mal, Director of Technology Standardization and Spectrum Management in Eتصالات. So welcome all.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Hi. So if you allow me, I'd like to moderate the panel through multiple questions to all of you, our distinguished guests. First, I would like to just express my gratitude and to be in this panel discussion with so many experts in the telecom field and in the digital transformation field as well.
Includes our entertainment.
Thank you very much. So business continuity and economic growth was Yes. So business continuity and economic growth was the main two topics that we heard our colleagues probably talking, whether it's through the government services and of course the private services being developed and implemented to the customers, and the economic growth opportunities that was highlighted and probably gained from the pandemic. So if you allow me, I'd like to start off with my first question to Mr. Ali Shima from Ericsson. So the pandemic played a vital role in and probably led to the acceleration of digitization in different services and processes through digital transformation. And it is as a digital transformation is considered as an accelerator of innovation to empower new products and services and enable new business models, enhance efficiency in these services in general. So can you share from your insights some of the best examples you came across through, whether it's in the country or globally, please?
Thank you very much. First off, Your Excellencies, respected experts, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much once again to TDRA for this opportunity to come and speak at this auspicious occasion. It's the topic that you highlight. I think it's a critical one. It's very, very important to take measure of the situation as we are now a little over, I think, a year into this pandemic, and we are getting comfortable with the new norms. And we saw, and I would like to congratulate all the speakers before this panel, because we saw a host of different activities which are fantastic, every single one of them. Each of them is a case study, and typically which takes years upon years to get them rolling and get them activated, have been done post haste, have made life easy for us. So as a consumer, as an individual, I would like to thank all Kareem, TDRA, UAE government, and all the others who have put in this fantastic effort. Now let's as part of looking and taking gauge of the situation, I would like to take a step back and try to understand, because when we as Ericsson, as well as the industry, as the mobile industry, when we started looking into this looking into the situation with COVID really impacting the lives of people, we wanted to take measure of what exactly practically is the impact. We did several studies, and we're still continuing to do some of them. But one of the studies that we did, we went across 11 different countries, and this was about almost now 7-8 months ago. When we went to 11 different countries, we interviewed several thousands of participants, trying to understand how have they seen the impact. It's kind of obvious, of course, we were not being able to leave our houses, we were not being able to go out. Social distancing was a mandatory thing. When we put all of that together, it was becoming, so we wanted to gauge how has the trends, how has the use of individuals changed in terms of ICTs, in terms of digitalization. And it was kind of stating the obvious, but it was very interesting to see it, Will, that the scale of what people saw the impact was very clear. There were almost 8 out of 10 of the people that we interviewed. They came back to us and said that lockdowns will impact us. I mean, it's kind of obvious. But then when we started looking deeper into them, what exactly is the impact? They were worried about their jobs. They were worried about education. They were worried about getting access to basic facilities. And then as soon as we started to ask them, how can we make things better? How do you think can be resolved? These issues can be resolved. Almost unanimous answer came back to us saying that ICTs and connectivity and digital availability was the only way that they saw safely able to access all these facilities. They were very clearly saying that the usage of internet went up at every single demographic. 90% of the people were using more internet. They were using, we have numbers on that. They were using primarily the highest, there was 76% of them were using it for education, 74% staying connected with their loved ones, with the people that they needed to communicate to. about 60-70% of them were still were using it for the jobs. I'm 100% of you and I know, so we have been very actively using this. Another key aspect was there was a big percentage, more than half of them were still using it for entertainment and the sheer sanity of being in a lockdown, Stockholm syndrome, to avoid the Stockholm syndrome. So the bottom line in this case was we saw very clearly that these needs were there and that were being met. The only way to meet them were through an effective communication, an effective connection. Now, the next step before we go towards, I mean, I will not dive into individual cases. I would encourage all who are listening today to go to ITU, WSIS. They have a very long list of repository of ICT initiatives that were picked up globally. It's a 300-page report, which one single pager for every single initiative that was reported. That does not include everything, but there are hundreds of cases. And if you don't, I mean, even this morning when we started the session about an hour and a half ago, since then we've had about 20 different cases already that we've just talked about, maybe more, maybe I wasn't keeping enough count. The bottom line is what the recent connectivity, recent COVID pandemic has shown us is that those who were prepared for digitalization to being a priority and digitalization as a national objective were able to quickly jump in. And I would like to quote Colin from Kareem, where he said that a lot of the initiatives that they wanted to put out, they were able to execute very quickly because of the great connectivity that we have in the country. So we saw the exact same things. Whenever there was digital connectivity, all these great initiatives can be done, whether it's connecting people, tracking people, whether it's providing education, whether it's providing entertainment or business continuity or financial connectivity, or just doing your day-to-day office work. But that is only doable once you actually have the basic level of connectivity. And we saw that we saw exactly that same thing anytime and every time we went back and did some research, whether it was, and mobile connectivity was absolutely mandatory in this case. In countries like the UAE, where the connectivity infrastructure is fantastic, that makes maybe mobile connectivity seems like an add-on, but then the services are that much more demanding as well. But in countries like India, for example, nearly half of the people were only connecting through mobile broadband. They did not have access to fixed broadband. So on that, I will take a pause and hand it back to you, Abdullah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Ali. I was going to say that I can use probably part of your discussion in my next question. I'll probably refer to Mr. Ali from EITC-DO. As Mr. Ali and Mr. Colin before him, and I think all of the presenters today have actually discussed, the main aspect of it is the readiness of infrastructure. And being one of the telecom providers in the country, you're responsible for the infrastructure readiness to enable ICT services. So the COVID-19 pandemic or any other related or other pandemic that might hit us, the resulting crisis from that has probably impacted the life and the society itself in almost every industry, including telecommunication as one of them. And connectivity has never been as important as it is right now, being able to work from home and study from home and providing other services, whether they're government or private services to the customers and to the society. That's a huge part. So my question to you, what does the sudden and very unexpected, let's say, change mean for telecoms? How should they respond to it? And partially, what are the new digital services that was implemented by EITC-DO during the pandemic, please?
Well, first of all, thank you, Abdullah, and thank you to TDRA for hosting this event and for hosting us and giving us this opportunity to share, even if it's a modest contribution to this amazing forum. I mean, as you rightly mentioned, Abdullah, the pandemic, I mean, it took everyone by surprise, and it impacted every sector globally in the societies. I mean, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to education, when it comes to even the basic needs of the shoppings that we were accustomed to and going physically to the shops, everything has drastically changed. And what made it so sudden is that the pace at which the situation escalated because of the pandemic, which almost overnight we went to complete lockdown. And that made the situation so important to have a solid telecom infrastructure that will ensure business continuity, which is absolutely important. As Mohammed Khamis in one of the initial session that he covered, he mentioned COVID-19 was a test for agility. And that was extremely important, to be agile, to react, to respond to the situation, to contain the damage as much as possible. Now, from a telecommunication point of view, of course, I mean, I believe personally, I mean, COVID-19 made it very clear the critical role that the telecommunication industry plays when it comes from both social and economic perspectives. And connectivity, what I see it, the way I see it, is a necessity. It's as if we're going back to the basics of human needs. We're talking about food and shelter and connectivity, because simply without connectivity, we cannot any longer function a normal life. And that's a fact, and that's how we're living today. And this just exerts more pressure on the telecommunication industry, the pressure in the sense of higher level of responsibility, because people take connectivity for granted, and the reliability and the availability of such connectivity is critical. I mean, regardless if it's a pandemic or the normal situation, but it made it very clear during the pandemic how critical it is. Now, going back to one of the points also that was mentioned by Mr. Said bin Ghalaita, it's important to have a sustainable development of a network. And what that means is that having a solid infrastructure, having solid capabilities from a technical point of view in terms of a solid architecture, a state-of-the-art infrastructure that's world-class, that is very important. I mean, and now we're talking about a situation, as we said, it was sudden. It was a sudden disruption. Without such solid infrastructure, it would have been a completely different story. The agility that we talked about would not have been possible. The business continuity that we talked about would not have been possible without such infrastructure in the first place. And alhamdulillah, in the UAE, it's something to be proud of. I mean, the kind of telecom infrastructure that we have, it made the situation so much easier on everyone. It made it such a smooth transition from physical interaction to virtual world and online interaction. And as we also, the amazing services discussed and presented by the colleagues in the previous slides, all those amazing services depend heavily on connectivity, and without connectivity, the whole user experience will be definitely disrupted. In terms of, the kind of contribution that the telecom industry made during the pandemic, it was definitely about reacting fast enough to accommodate the surge in the traffic that happened. Not just the surge in traffic, but changes that happen in the behavior of people. I mean, now you came to a point where more people were watching, let's say, video streaming as an entertainment service. The timing of those video streaming sessions changed from what used to be a peak hour in the past. The peak hour changed during the pandemic. And all of that mandated doing necessary expansions from the infrastructure point of view, increasing the capacities, especially towards the e-learning platforms, especially towards the healthcare sector or platforms. That was important to support especially the e-learning requirements, which was a sudden shift from a physical classroom learning and education to an online platform where students would interact online. Of course, required necessary expansions on the data links from mobile and fixed to accommodate that traffic. And an important also aspect of the services that were leveraged during the pandemic is the utilization of all the digital channels. And what I mean by all digital channels, that includes the social media, the messaging services, and even emergency warning systems that you would get alerts on mobile phones. The telecom industry enabled the authorities to be able to communicate and alert the users for certain critical events for them to take necessary measures. So I think collectively, it's all about having a massive and a state-of-the-art infrastructure that can accommodate all those amazing services. And that's very, very important.
That's true. That's true. Thank you, Ali. So probably we're discussing the technology, let's say, as you have described, it surges in both customer side and even the business or government side, where they want to enable their services on a much, let's say, better technological process or service provided. So, Mr. Ahmad from Huawei, can I ask you this question? So during the COVID pandemic, businesses approach, as you said, have shifted, and their corresponding investment as well have undergone a massive shift towards technology-based services. From your expertise and from what you have seen so far, what are the, let's say, short and long-term impacts of COVID-19 on technology infrastructure, budgets, and investments?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to everyone joining us today. It's awesome to see like 500 plus people joined us today. So Alhamdulillah, this is, it's the new normal. This is an e-event where we are collaborating, we are discussing our what we have learned through. And as Mr. Ali mentioned just now about the experiences that we have gained in the last year plus in terms of how we adapted and how rapidly we developed our own platforms, the whole ecosystem. And this would have not been possible without the initiatives by His Royal Highness, talking about like decades back, what we started working on. And this is something that really comes to fruition now, that we are able to leverage upon what we set as a very strong foundation. And we are realizing, and we're coming into an era where, it's becoming a reality that when we talk about how we do things, there's been a complete paradigm shift. And I'll, go back to a century, the introduction of the automobile. In the US, the reason for it was simple. People were moving to the suburbs, cities were expanding, and you had the acceleration point that automobiles had to come in to cover that. The same way, communication has to come in to cover the new normal, how we do work every day, how do we interact, how do we collaborate, how do we get things done. And this is something that we were thinking of maybe as a stop-go initiative, but this is going to become the new normal. Everything is going to become digital. And for this, we need the infrastructure to adapt, to evolve, to meet the requirement. So if everything is going to be on my mobile, everything is going to be digital, I need it has to be trust developed, security has to be covered, the infrastructure has to be managed in the right way. And we are blessed that we have the right initiatives and the right capability set available, specifically like from the, for example, TRDA side, from the government and regulatory side. The aspects that need to be covered are being looked into seriously as well, like the security aspects, the network availability aspects, and the capability aspects. And we've always, in the beginning, there was also a talk about like things like we suddenly saw a surge in terms of e-education, like in the UAE, we saw like almost every child was moved to an e-learning platform, and this has continued. So the tablets that went into children's daily use because of COVID, they've stayed. Like for my son, there is Raskit. There are multiple applications that the schools are using to get that collaboration part done. So this is becoming the new normal. And 2/3 of, like, for example, we, during the whole pandemic, we've been looking at the whole situation with our consultancy partners as well as government organizations as well. Like when we look at how the whole platform has adjusted itself, like 2/3 of all enterprises somehow are now connected and using these digital platform tools and connectivity to get daily business up and running. Then we see that almost 85% of the enterprises themselves are now partially, if not fully, on the cloud. They're using some cloud capability. Everybody is connecting and using for their, families are connected through these these communication platforms, the social media platforms, the e-commerce platforms in place that are there to cover those needs of, for example, from the retail perspective. All of this has to somehow be covered from an underlying fabric of connectivity. And that investment is very critical. And that has to be a national strategy. And we see this, like South Korea, UAE is a very great example. So South Korea, UAE, China, all these countries, we see that there's a national policy of getting connectivity at the fundamental level, at a driver and an accelerator for development. And so getting us out of this pandemic and getting us back into the growth era is going to be communication, this ICT capability in terms of its being part of the basic fabric of society. It's going to be very critical. And you look at just in terms of the real estate market or the other tourism market, in case of the Middle East, specifically GCC and UAE, only because of the capabilities of the platform, we were able to get tourists back smartly, safely. We were able to get the transactional quantity. You look at DLD's transactions, it's amazing because they went all digital. If they would not have done that, they would be in the same situation like in places like in New Zealand, where I'm from. We still do not have, we are still in a lull in terms of the development, in terms of the transactional number of transactions that are happening on the real estate side. We have suddenly somehow, serviced that.
I agree with you, Imad, on the point that probably connectivity and being connected was a luxury before. Right now, it's a necessity to provide these services or just to be able to interconnect with other people. So probably my next question will be to Mr. Emmanuel. Those new forces, let's say, the pandemic that we have had during the past year, that is impacting let's say, the entire value chain of an enterprise. So the availability of large amount of, let's say, digital data, automation of the production processes, interconnectivity of the supply chains. We have seen those examples as a leading for the transformation of those business models. Can you give us an idea about how digital transformation during the pandemic or probably prior to that affected the business value chain of Deloitte, and if you have any examples globally as well?
Thank you so much, Abdullah, for this question, and thanks to Tidra and to all of you today for the amazing opportunity to come and participate and give a bit of our own views from a Deloitte standpoint on this very important subject. Of course, I mean there's two aspects, right? There's the sort of focus around the connectivity, and I think my colleagues just before and in the previous presentation I've made the excellent points around this. And then there's, I think, as you said, right, the wider value chain around digital transformation or digital acceleration. The way we see it, of course, as all of us have said, I mean, definitely this pandemic and the past 12 months have taught us things or two, right, in terms of business management and consequences that we had around the operating model and the impact of the pandemic on the operating model of organization. And I think in any challenging times we also see great opportunities, and that definitely we would all agree also that these opportunities have been largely seized by many organizations around the world. So the way I probably would like to structure it is, in our view, there are three main layers, I would say, in terms of the digital transformation. The first layer is around your business impact, right? What are the changes that you see in terms of your business model evolution, based on what has happened in terms of lockdowns and new ways of working. The second one is around your people, and it's around the future of work, as we call it. And the third element, which has been discussed at length also today, is around the impact on the infrastructure and the components from resilience and resilience. So I will focus probably more on the first two, and then just a glimpse on the third one. So if you look first at the business impact, and that has impact has been seen across number of industries. We're just talking with Ali and Ahmad around the telco industry, but I mean, if you look largely in the Middle East, but also in other markets. So if you look, for example, you take retail, you take financial services, you take media. So retail, as we all know, has had tremendous digital acceleration over the past few years around e-commerce adoption. If you look at the region, we started the pandemic with a single-digit value of transaction in terms of overall retail market for e-commerce. Fast forward today, so 2019, 2 to 3% of the total value of the retail market. Fast forward today, this number has more than double in the space of just 12 months. I also believe that these changes around e-commerce adoption are definitely there to stay. Most of the e-commerce platforms have also grown significantly. So we've seen, significant increase, particularly in the first wave of lockdown. Last year, platforms grew, by staggering amounts. Triple-digit growth in terms of value of transactions, right? 600%, 700% growth in the space of 2 to 6 weeks. So that's, retail transformation. At the similar time, we've seen the business model transformation from the banking industry, from financial services industry. Again, significant acceleration, particularly in this region. I mean, we all know that this region had, very strong culture on cash and the cash economy, and we do really believe that the pandemic has put a final dent on this with the adoption of e-commerce transaction, as I was mentioning, but also mobile payment and so on. And all leads to believe, when you look at some statistics, that around 40 to 50% of the people that have transacted in that way using mobile payment will never go back, to cash-based type of transaction. So that's the financial services part. And then on the media side, especially in this region, we see some of the traditional publishing retiring, circulation of print, in this market, particularly also in the UAE. And again, that's not something that will come back. That's a fundamental shift in the media market. That's for traditional. For the OTT players, and I think that was also shared earlier, we've seen significant growth, of course, in terms of streaming platforms, in terms of OTT platforms. Netflix has seen double-digit growth, but if you look at regional players like Stars Plays, like Shahid, for example, they've also grown a massive amount of percentage increase. Triple-digit again, right? Tripling or 5 times, number of unique users in the past few months. So all, if you look at it from an industry point of view, business models have shifted dramatically. And what do we need to enable this business model? The second layer of the 3 layers that I was just mentioning is around the future of work. And for us, it's impossible to see a digital transformation without thinking around, the future of the workforce. And again, the pandemic has taught us a few things around, what could be the long-term vision for this future of work. But we believe that this is not necessarily what future of work would look like eventually, but definitely we see a shift in model. And for us, it's essentially around three key aspects. The first aspect is around work. The second aspect is around workforce. The third aspect is around workplace. So if you look at work, it's essentially, how work has, become more and more augmented with new technologies such as AI. So you have, a different type of talent pool and different type of enablement from a technology standpoint. In terms of the workforce, how do you manage more and more contingent workforce? So your talent pool becomes very, very different, and we've seen that extensively during the lockdown period. And the third part is around the workplace. And around the workplace, this is all around, how do you transform your current workplace to a hybrid workplace, connected workplace, with a very holistic strategy around your workplace, looking at space, looking at the place, looking at talent, and looking at the technology dimension. So that's the workforce element. On the technology enabler, and this is more around the infrastructure, as I was mentioning, I won't dive necessarily into that because some of the points have been already made, but definitely, I mean, the surge in traffic that we've seen over the lockdown periods has been significant. It has also been surprising to some extent because, as we're saying, it has impacted various networks in different ways, shifting also the peak times. We've seen in many markets, so, anything between 20% to 60% growth in terms of traffic. Similarly, traffic increase in terms of the OTT players. And this has led, of course, to a number of response in terms of network resilience from the telcos and infrastructure provider in the world. So I think we've seen a number of very innovative ways to come up and try to cope with the surge in traffic, from collaboration between providers to educating also your users, also to government, as Ilya also mentioned in the previous presentation. Educating, also taking measure at the government standpoint in terms of spectrum allocation and so on. So in terms of overall resilience and readiness, what we see is that it has highlighted a lot of difference in terms of the maturity of some of the telcos, some of the infrastructure providers in the market, and the importance for us is how do we move, how do we take the lessons learned from this pandemic to move up, the maturity levels of the infrastructure providers from the current state to this.
Building on your point, probably, Mr. Emmanuel, and targeting my next question to Dr. Abdelhadi from Eتصالات. It's true that the COVID-19 crisis is unprecedented, but it has definitely proven something to us, that the future can be very unexpected, and the telecom industry as itself and the other businesses around all the sectors, different sectors, needs to be ready and prepared for change and adopting to change, being flexible in order to adapt to new situations. So for you, Dr. Abdelhadi, what are the, let's say, technical implementation that help in providing or accelerating the digital transformation in order to adapt to those sudden situation and sudden changes?
Thank you very much, Abdullah, and my greetings to you and to everyone. Indeed, I hope everyone is safe in this special circumstance of COVID-19. Indeed, similar to what mentioned by my colleagues here in the panel and even previous speakers, COVID-19 has definitely gave us a lot of lessons, indeed, not only to organizations, but even to individuals. Everyone here has seen that digital readiness becomes a priority to everyone. So it's not anymore a luxury to have a digital connectivity or even digital service or even access to a digital platform. All our life after COVID-19 or during COVID-19 was completely and will be completely linked with the digital channels that we have been creating in one night, overnight, during COVID-19. Indeed, we have seen a number of countries even imposing a number of restrictions in movement of people, for example, during the COVID-19 crisis, until this moment, even in some countries, and thanks definitely to UAE government and to our government vision that really balance between the need to protect its people, as well as to maintain our life and businesses safe, but even progressive. So after these restrictions being imposed in many countries, we have seen the change and the shift, even in the way we are delivering our services. Big movement has been shifted from, for example, the mobility even to homes and to fixed type of locations where we have to provide a huge amount of data and reliable services with significant scalability to be provided to these sort of organizations to be able to run their business efficiently. Through our commitment to our society, and Eتصالات continues this commitment, we try to accommodate a number of these sort of requirements in a very agile manner, looking to the demand of the market during the COVID-19, and definitely also will continue after COVID-19. When we look to the situation right now, we think that there are three major vectors, let me call it, or perspective we have to look at. First of all, the infrastructure, and mentioned by colleagues, we without a connectivity today, maybe you cannot not even to entertain, but even not even to do your work, and even to continue your education, or even sometimes to get some sort of health consultation. So connectivity becomes a mandatory. However, connectivity is built over an infrastructure that Etisalat, as one of the major players in this area, not only in UAE, but even in the whole region, has been putting a special focus indeed to build this state-of-art infrastructure, not only from wireless, but even from fixed. We are today the highest fiber penetration, exceeding 90% of our population or our let us say, country connected over fiber. Not only this portfolio has been complemented as well with new technologies, like, for example, 5G has been adopted and has been widely adopted across our cities in order to support the new type of use cases, for example, including the new demand for high speed and reliable connection to run our education and our students. Etisalat, for example, has been supporting more than 1 million students today to serve their education platforms and websites for free. Simply speaking, we have more than 10 million subscribers today are even surfing for free more than 800 websites and platforms in UAE. In addition to this, more than 12,000 of those, let us say, students and families who are not able to offer, for example, to get these sort of packages of internet in coordination with the health ministry, with the education ministry, we would even able to provide them a very reliable packages to access the internet and to continue their life. Many type of commitment to continue, not only from Etisalat, but from everyone in this country, this lovely country, to provide our people the required services on timely manner and in efficient manner. So when we talk about the network and infrastructure, we cannot forget, as we said, the services. And even we have seen that the services now becomes, let us say, some sort of models now that have been reinvented indeed to tackle this sort of new workforce, let us say, capabilities like remote workforce type of situation right now that we have. Automation becomes mandatory to run all of these sort of businesses in a very efficient way. However, when we talk about this sort of online accessibility and the huge amount of data being transferred over our platforms, we cannot forget the data security. This is one of the important element now that we are focusing on, and ensuring that all of our capabilities being put to ensure the privacy and security of our data and customers' data. In addition to this, supply chain becomes a very, very important element to everyone. With the transparency now looking for in terms of the supply chain on end-to-end basis, we have seen that the more and more type of let us say flexibility we are offering with the supply chain management will be mandatory to continue our businesses in such type of crisis. And that's why sustainability that Mr. Saif was referring to will be requiring some more focus from us and from everyone in this let us say country to the supply chain end to end. However, we have seen significant also changes to the customer behavior and attitude in terms of the adoption of digital services over multiple platforms that we have been offering right now. We have been offering more than 9 platforms for communication between organizations and even individuals. And these sort of platforms now has becomes part of our life, part of our daily even activity. As we said, digital now becomes central to everyone and to every interaction in this country and even in the other countries. And as I said, it increased now the adoption curve for these sort of digital channels in our lovely country. So new ways now to the e-commerce and e-payment, we have seen like number of examples given by different speakers, becomes now, as I said earlier, part of our life. Most of our products now we are getting over these sort of online platforms, with e-commerce capability. So what we are saying, Etisalat has been building its infrastructure and the UAE infrastructure with 2 main objectives: ensure the connectivity to everyone, but also ensure a proper digital services that makes everyone business and life, let us say, on track. And not forgetting even entertainment. We have been offering a number of packages and capabilities for this entertainment. We have been expanding our network significantly with a cloud native infrastructure that has been, let us say, developed in order to ensure agility of introducing our services to our market and to our people. And we are continuing this commitment toward our society and to offer the needs with latest technologies being adopted. Thank you, Abdullah.
Thank you, Dr. Abdel Hadi. Being one of the let's say, telecom providers in the country, and the backbone, let's say, of connectivity for the government or private services being implemented in the country, providing all types of services. I want to ask Mr. Ali Shima. We have spoken about the impact of the digital transformation. We have spoken about the services being provided through the digital transformation. I want to ask you about the, let's say, crucial timings, or the criticality of timing to start building the infrastructure and actually preparing for those services to be provided.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting discussion and very good question. I think timing is everything, and there's no time like today. One of the key things, we build on this a little earlier as well. One of the reasons that we are sitting here and all the fantastic services that we have in the country today, in the UAE, that are available digital to all the citizens. I think the reason we are able to enjoy those services as citizens of this fantastic country is because of His Highness's vision in 2013 that was referred to at the very start. Had that vision not been there, today we might not have been as prepared for where we are today. I mean, yes, it was a big impact. It still is. COVID-19 has had an impact on every country, on every individual. But in the end, if we do the matrices, those who actually were early to plan their infrastructure, make available the digital framework that was needed. And I know nobody could have foreseen the pandemic, but those who had the foresight of understanding the importance of digital infrastructure, I think they are the ones who are critical, and they are the ones who are succeeding in this, in mitigating the response here. And I think at the same time as timing, there are two additional associated aspects that need to be understood. That it's not just about providing some infrastructure. It is about understanding that communication infrastructure is a basic need. It is a need of a citizen, and it needs to be provided to every possible citizen. So you cannot be satisfied by having great connectivity in a localized area. It needs, so that if these are services that every citizen needs access to, and they need access to in a cost-effective, efficient manner. That means an efficient technology that needs to be deployed all across. And at the same time, I think what is critical now, while COVID-19 has, we've all had lockdowns, we've all sort of had to restrict ourselves to our domiciles, our own houses, our own countries. But at the same time, in some ways, it has brought us all together. It has made us understand that issues that face humanity are issues for every single human, irrespective of your country, your nation, your creed. And that is the next step that needs to be understood, that it's not just on an individual country. If one country is able to eradicate COVID-19, that will not go away. We need to work as a community. We need to work together as a global regional community to make sure that these services, these preparations that we are doing on a local level are translated on regional and then global level. Because if some citizens still suffer from the pandemic and are not getting access to all the digital services, all the services which are mandatory to sustain themselves, then eventually that is the place where the COVID or something else, God forbid, I hope I'm absolutely wrong, but something else could come. And that's the preparation that needs to happen. So in terms of timing, we need to make sure that for example, we talk about 5G. We need to make sure in countries which already have good digital infrastructure, Dr. Abdul Hadi mentioned UAE has 5G, and this is fantastic because it was planned earlier on. We're not 100% certain of all the services that will come its way, that will be using the fantastic coverage and capacity that comes through 5G connectivity. But just by making it available in the country, we're opening doors for innovation and allowing those services to be made available. True. That is going to be the critical part. Plan ahead, put the infrastructure and intent earlier on, And the earlier you're stepping into it, the easier it will be for you to not just fight off pandemics, but also to leverage innovation from the country and build a stronger future for the country.
I agree with you totally, Ali. If I can get just a quick feedback probably from Mr. Ahmad on the, we have spoken about the infrastructure and we have spoken about the readiness required for that. What is it in terms of, let's say, skills, human skills or even technology-wise implementations that might enable digital transformation?
Fantastic question. This is a complete paradigm shift. We all suddenly became IT specialists. We are using Zoom, we are using Windows, teaching the teachers, collaborating. Like we have had sessions in communication, like how we are working with government entities, like how DIVA is enabling itself to how the way Ports is enabling itself. Everybody is readjusting the tool sets, AI, machine learning, big data. These are they're not jargons anymore. They are the reality of what we are doing every day. And that Mr. Abdul Hadi mentioned, as well as Ali mentioned from EITC, like the level of connectivity that we have in the Middle East, in UAE especially, like we have 90+% fiber connectivity. This is, for any other country in the GCC, this is like through the roof number. How we can leverage this to build this ecosystem and build the capability set to meet the requirements of the next 10 years, where everything is going to be digital. There are no two ways about it. We have already crossed the bridge. COVID helped us accelerate something like first time I remember, I think it was with Mr. Abdul Hadi, 2010 we met and we talked about digital transformation. COVID-19 in 1 year, 12 months, we were able to do something that we were pushing for the last maybe 8 years. And look at the numbers, 16 5G networks in the region. In Middle East region, alhamdulillah, now we have 16 5G networks. The acceleration of adoption of 5G is double that of LTE in the same amount of time. These are all indicators that yes, now the people are also ready for the digital transformation. Now the tools need to be developed. So AI, machine learning, big data, digital platforms, like a lot of our government entities have a UX expert, the user interface expert, a whole department for user interface, be it DIVA, be it any other department. This is a showcase for this, and this has to continue, and we have to persevere through, and this is where the future lies.
That's
I hope
true.
that answers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ahmad. My question to you, Mr. Emmanuel. So the team have, or the panelists have spoken about the infrastructure readiness and the capability provided by technologies. As a telecom, we are, or I think the telecom sector is the backbone of the digital transformation. However, it's not only about the backbone or the infrastructure being ready. It's based on the services themselves. So as an entity, they want to provide the service through digital means, and as a customer, they would like to get it in a digital manner. So what are your insights in respect to the, let's say, services, digital services provided earlier, and what can be enhanced for the future?
Yes, absolutely, and you're right. I mean, I think as we were just discussing previously, I mean, technology is one element, right? Technology is one element of the digital transformation, which is, of course, fundamental element and clearly an enabler of everything else. That there's no question about it. If you look again at the way you provide services in the market, you have multiple layers to provide those services. Services on top, as mentioned before, on the business model. Your business model needs to be supported by a certain way that you will deliver the services, and then you have a number of enablers behind that between your resources, so your people, processes, technology, and so on. So in terms of services, I mean, clearly what we've seen and experienced, and that goes across public sector and private sector, is significant digital disruption. I think services goes two ways in my view. There's the type of services, and then there's how do you provide those services to consumers and citizens. what we've seen, for example, if you take the example of the telco business, is more and more innovation around the services that need to be developed and deployed by telcos. We've seen, for example, IoT now being a significant part of the revenues for any telco organization, 10-20% depending on the organization. We've seen telcos becoming banks, right? So buying banks, becoming a licensed financial services company. And I think, there's a number of very good examples in the region, in Saudi and in the UAE, where they are actually, making a very important difference in the market. And then there's, all the additional sort of adjacent services that, the telco industry is providing on cyber and other elements. And then there's the element of channels. So how do you deliver those services to end users? And then, both, all consumer-facing industries, and telco would be included in that. But if you take the analogy that I was mentioning before in financial services, I mean, the idea is that probably, and some people go as far as saying that by 2030, the concept of a branch of a bank would have disappeared, right? And we're seeing definitely a number of active, strategy around branch optimization from a bank standpoint, and that's also the same case from a telco standpoint. We've seen the increase in terms of self-serve during the time of the pandemic for all consumer-facing industries in the region and outside of the region, and truly, this is here again to stay. Digital adoption around the channels to serve your customer is definitely the way forward.
Yes, thank you, Emmanuel. And I believe we have kind of extended our time limit here. So I would like to thank all the panelists. That it was my extreme pleasure to host you in this panel and provide your expertise to our participants and viewers. So thank you. The mic is back to you, Shema.
Thank you, Abdullah, and it was also my pleasure to meet you all today, our distinguished speakers. And ladies and gentlemen, before concluding today's event, and as we promised you that we would like to inform you that there are lucky attendees who won prizes, and the names will be announced on our social media accounts today. So dear all, again, it has been a pleasure to host this event and witness all your great visions and experience. Thank you all for your participation today. Wish you all a great and happy day. Stay connected and stay safe. Thank you all.